Most of us, at some point in our childhood, have likely heard the story of Daedalus and Icarus. This ancient Greek myth, which has echoed through the corridors of time from the earliest days of civilization, serves as one of our culture's foundational cautionary tales. It introduces us to the gifted and profoundly ingenious architect, Daedalus, a man whose mind was a labyrinth of brilliance, capable of conceiving wonders. Yet, for all his genius, he found himself imprisoned by the cruel and paranoid King Minos. His prison was a tall, lonely tower on the isolated island of Crete, a sun-bleached rock in the vast Aegean Sea. And sharing this confinement was his beloved son, Icarus, a young man full of life and on the cusp of his own potential. Imagine their days. The same stones, the same sliver of sky through a narrow window, the same sound of the indifferent sea below. For Daedalus, a creator, this stasis was a torment worse than any physical punishment. Unwilling to let his and his son's spirits wither away in captivity, he began to conceive of the impossible. He watched the birds soaring freely outside their prison, masters of the wind and sky, and an audacious idea took root. He began to gather the materials for their salvation, one feather at a time. Over weeks and months, he meticulously constructed 2 pairs of magnificent wings, painstakingly gluing together the feathers of passing birds with beeswax scavenged from honeycomb. It was an act of supreme patience and desperate hope. The day came. He fitted 1 pair of wings to his son's shoulders and the other to his own. Standing on the window ledge, with the wind whipping around them and the chasm of the sea yawning below, Daedalus gave his son instructions born of both love and fear. He beckoned Icarus to join him in a daring bid for freedom, but with one crucial, 2-fold caveat. Do not fly too low, for the sea spray will dampen the feathers and weigh you down. And do not fly too high, for the sun's fervent rays will melt the wax, and your flight will come to a tragic end. Follow me, he urged, stay the middle course. They leaped. For a glorious time, the plan worked. They were free, gliding on the currents of the air, the wind a song of liberation in their ears. They successfully navigated their way through Cretan airspace, leaving their prison tower far behind. Somewhere past the island of Samos, a feeling began to swell in Icarus's chest. It was a feeling of pure, unadulterated ecstasy. This was more than escape. This was transcendence. Despite his father's gentle and patient warnings, the young man was overcome with the thrill of it all. He forgot the sea below and the sun above. He knew only the feeling of power and freedom. He soared higher and higher, a silhouette against the blinding sun. Just as his father had feared, the heat turned the fragile wax to liquid. His wings, once a marvel of engineering, disintegrated into a cascade of feathers, and he plunged from the heavens into the sea, just off the coast of a picturesque small island that, to this day, bears his name and honors his memory, Icaria. The way we're typically told this story, the moral is direct, sharp, and heavily weighted in one direction. Don't get overexuberant. Rein in your impulses. Know your place. Don't let your ego take over. Don't show off. Calm down. This is the lesson of hubris, the ancient Greek concept of dangerous pride that provokes the wrath of the gods. And the myth would not have entered the folklore of our species, surviving for millennia, if this were not, on some level, supremely sensible advice. Societies are built on rules and limits. Clearly, no good life is possible without a sharp awareness of the perils of egomania and untempered, raw appetite. But the very solidity of this message, its constant repetition, risks blinding us to a crucial, subsidiary idea lurking covertly within the narrative. To focus only on Icarus's fall is to miss half the story. This is not just a tale of pride and arrogance, of getting too big for one's boots and neglecting one's true position. It is also a profound story of hope. It is a story of necessary escape, of the courage to give an audacious plan a chance, of refusing to remain locked up forever at the whims of foolish authorities. It is a story of daring to plot an alternative when all seems lost. For every one person who leaps from the tower with insufficient self-control, there are, we should note, many, many others who just as tragically stay in their towers their whole lives long. Their prisons may not be made of stone, but they're just as real. They're the dead-end jobs, the unfulfilling relationships, the self-imposed limitations built from a fear of failure. These souls remain not just in one room, but huddled in a corner of that room, at the edge of a box, within a cupboard, under a bed, too frightened to ever test their own potency and claim their freedom, too timid to ever dare to evade unfair restrictions, too cowed by the ghost of Icarus to bring themselves to imagine a better future. The tragedy of Icarus was swift and spectacular. The tragedy of the prisoner is a slow, quiet, agonizing decay of the human spirit. When we look at the matter squarely, there are, in fact, two morals in this central ancient Greek myth, intertwined like the threads of a fate. There is the traditional one about the troubles of flying too close to the sun, and also, more quietly, the lesser-known one about the terrible, soul-crushing risks of remaining a prisoner all one's life. There is a figure in this story to whom we should look for clues as to how we might handle this painful, essential dichotomy at play. Daedalus. Despite the tragic outcome for his son, he should be recognized as a hero in his own right. He is the embodiment of the middle path. He tried, with particular dexterity, to model for his son what a successful, balanced life could look like. He didn't just warn Icarus of boundless dangers. He didn't just lecture about how bold schemes never work out and how timidity is mandatory. He expressly did not want his son to spend one more day in confinement. It was Daedalus who dreamed the dream of flight. It was he who spoke to his son of the possibilities of trying on wings, who wanted his child to head out on the prevailing currents and have a shot at reaching new lands. His was the wisdom of calculated risk. We should not, therefore, inevitably deploy examples of ghastly accidents to impede our appetite for novelty, growth, and satisfaction. We have clever minds, just like Daedalus, with which to plot sound escape routes from our own towers. We can be ingenious in the face of our enemies, whether they're external oppressors or our own internal fears. We must, of course, take sensible precautions. There are absolute requirements for strategy, for planning, for forbearance. But if we only ever think of safety, if all we're obsessed by are the crashes, then we are fated to die in despair anyway. Our wings never even built, let alone tested. There must be, and there can be, a good midway point the Daedalian path between succumbing in a prison and drowning out at sea. Ultimately, what shapes our underlying attitudes toward risk and freedom is, as it were, who Daedalus was for us. There are fathers and mothers, mentors and teachers who talk to us gently and imaginatively about risks and returns. They discuss the downsides of overexcitement, but they also passionately warn against the slow poison of meekness. And then there are others, themselves still trapped, who cannot countenance their children ever taking to the skies, perhaps because they still haven't worked out a way out of prison for themselves, and a child's flight is a painful reminder of their own groundedness. We know a great deal, perhaps too much, about the catastrophes that can follow from ambition. The fall of Icarus is seared into our collective consciousness. But we must not allow ourselves to forget the other side of the coin. Whatever the fate of poor Icarus, there are always equally potent risks bound up with never pushing ourselves, even a little, closer to our sun's vital and warming rays. Perhaps the true beauty of the myth isn't in the fall, but in the flight itself, however brief. It's in the courage to build the wings in the first place. The lesson isn't to stay in the tower. The lesson is to build better wings. It is to learn from Daedalus, to study the currents, to respect the elements, and to understand that freedom requires both daring and discipline. Let us be inspired not by Icarus's fall, but by his glorious ascent. Let us aim for the sun, not with reckless abandon, but with the wisdom to know how high we can soar and the grace to navigate the journey. In doing so, we honor both the son's dream of the sky and the father's hope for a safe landing on a new shore. If this exploration of ancient wisdom and modern life resonates with you, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Join our community as we continue to unpack the stories that shape us, finding new light in old tales and new wings for our own aspirations. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a flight of fancy or a lesson in wisdom.